Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming to see my show with Wildeye. I am Wildeye. I've got one of the most awesome guests that I've ever had, that I've ever met. He's one of my favorites, one of my dad's favorites. I'd like to welcome Mr. Magnum TA. Thank you.
Man, what a pleasure to be here, and thank you for seeking me out.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Um, to be honest with you, you're the one person that I really, really wanted to talk to. Um, I watched your matches with my dad when I was really little. Um, Watched you versus Nikita Koloff, which is my all-time favorite feud. I will be talking to him in a few weeks as well, which is pretty awesome. Uh,
Cool.
so, tell me what it was like for you at a young age getting into wrestling. What was did you watch something that triggered it, or what got you into wanting to wrestle?
So, like my earliest memories of watching TV with my dad was watching Mid Atlantic Championship Wrestling,
Yeah.
and and I loved it as a kid. I mean, it was like it was like a weekly ritual, something I followed and I watched. And then when I got in high school, I got involved in amateur wrestling, and I wrestled my the ninth, 10th, 11th, 12th grade of junior high school, and so I kind of lost track of professional wrestling during that time. This was in the 70s.
Yeah.
I graduated high school in 77, went on to wrestle at Old Dominion University in 1978, and then got a lot bigger, and realized that I wasn't going to be a 167 pounder for the rest of my life. Let's see if I can cut this volume down a little bit, see if it makes this a little bit better. Hang on just a second.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. Can you hear me any better? It's still echoing a little bit. Is it
Yeah, I
echoing
can
on
hear
your end?
you. A little bit, not too much.
Okay. But anyway, it was it was when I was in college and working in nightclubs that I started seeing professional wrestlers coming into clubs and whatnot where I worked. And that kind of like set the thought and process that, this could potentially be a career. So it was in when I was about 18, 19 years old, I started looking at wrestling from a different perspective. And it's something that I could potentially do.
Yeah.
And so I ended up making my way cross country all the way to Portland, Oregon, which is where I broke in.
Wow.
So are you over there in the Vancouver, British Columbia area or something you were telling me?
I'm in Vancouver, BC. I've been to Oregon a bunch of times. Yes.
So I wrestled in Vancouver, BC back in 1980
Oh,
with
really?
with Jay Youngblood. I sure did. And so I know that part of the world. That's where I spent my first 6 months in the business.
Oh,
So
wow.
so anyway, it wasn't something that the light bulb went off, too early. But when I realized that it's something I wanted to do, I knew I needed to learn the ropes, and I went as far away from home as I could because I knew I needed to get a lot of experience before I got exposed to a hometown crowd, so to speak.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. I didn't know you wrestled out here.
Yeah, I sure did. It was as a matter of fact, it's where I first met Andre the Giant, and Don Leo Jonathan was
Yeah.
wrestling out there back then. And oh gosh, it was the Barbarian. He was breaking in the same time as I was. He was wrestling the Tonga John uh,
Oh,
back in Portland.
yeah.
So anyway, there was a whole lot of wrestlers that came out of that Pacific Northwest.
Wow. Did you wrestle for Calgary then, or in Calgary?
And not for Calgary per se. We did work. We went up and worked some shots,
Yeah.
Calgary, but it was just something we did. Like once a month or something. We'd go up and work a few shots up there.
Wow, that's amazing. So tell me what it was like for you to go into it. Were you arrogant? Were you the type that I can do this, no problem, and then learned your lesson, or did you know it was
No,
hard?
I went into it very humbly because I knew it was something that took a tremendous amount of, first of all, athleticism was only part of it. Your ability to draw your persona out and be able to relate to the crowd
Yeah,
was as important, if not more important, than what we're physically capable of doing in the ring. So I was making a study of it, quickly,
yeah,
looking at the stars, looking at who the big players were, why they were successful, what kind of things they were doing to become successful. And my aspiration from the very beginning was to be the world's champion. So I was digging in and working hard, trying to figure out how to make myself the best I could be in as quick a time frame as I could. And back then we were wrestling 7 days a week, so I was getting a lot of experience. Yeah.
wow. So was it the Land of the Giants back then as well when you started?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with
So
the
yeah, you had opportunities to wrestle all over the United States back then. There was so many places to go. I spent 6 months working for Don Owens, and then I went from there to San Antonio, Texas, for Joe Blanchard. I
oh, nice.
wrestled there for 6 months. That's where I first met Tully,
Yeah.
and we established a relationship. And after 6 months of there, I met a man named Mike Graham. Mike Graham brought me to Tampa. His dad, Eddie Graham, owned Florida Championship Wrestling.
Wow.
So when I came there, that was another big piece of puzzle. But again, there was just so many places to go, and the television didn't have the whole world tied together like it does today. So you could wrestle in a territory for 6 months, and nobody around the world knew anything about it except what they read in the magazine.
Always the same matches too for a little while at a time, or different?
Oh yeah, and I started out, obviously underneath cards, wrestling with a lot of babyface matches. Uh,
Yeah.
Matt Bourne, Matt Bourne was in the territory when I was there, and his dad, Tough Tony Bourne, was there, and so Don's brother would like to have do these little things where he would pay you an extra $30 or something if you'd go out there and try to actually shoot for a takedown for the first few minutes of the match. He was such a big amateur fan, and we had a lot of fun with that, doing stuff like that, up there, and I just every place I went, everybody I came in contact with, they all helped me. If they found out you wanted to learn and you
Yeah.
wanted to really contribute to the industry, a lot of the guys were really good at sitting down and explaining things to you, the psychology, what it takes to be successful. And, you could absorb as much as your brain would allow you to get, uh,
Yeah.
you riding up and down the road with these guys.
Was Dusty one of those guys for you that helped you out a lot?
Oh, absolutely. I met Dusty in 1980. I broke in 80, and I met Dusty in 1981, halfway through 81.
Oh,
And we started a friendship that quickly grew into a very strong bond. And we were friends inside and outside the business, with family and friends and everything else. And he helped me tremendously. He was a huge reason for me to get the opportunity to eventually get where I got in the NWA.
yeah. Yeah. I heard a lot of people saying nothing but good things about Dusty, how much he's trained them, helped them with their promos, their characters. That guy knew everything of the business. What was it like being trained under Pete Robertson?
Well, Pete Robinson was my college wrestling coach.
Okay.
So that's not Pete Robinson from professional wrestling. This
Yeah.
is that was in my amateur wrestling. I actually only worked out in the ring one time before I started wrestling professionally. I mean, one time I got in there, learned how to hit the ropes. how to grab a headlock, how to give a tackle, take an arm drag, give an arm drag. I mean, literally, like I crashed course 2 hours in the ring. The next night I was wrestling on TV, and I wrestled every night straight after that.
Wow,
So
your first title was the NWA North American
actually, that
Championship?
was the Mid-South.
Yeah.
My first big singles title, yes. It was the Mid-South North American Heavyweight Championship. And
Same here.
and I won that. Gosh, who did I win that from? I think the first time I won it was from Mr. Wrestling 2.
Yeah. Yeah, I read on that. And then you wrestled against Ernie Ladd for it. What was it like wrestling against him?
Ernie was like in the twilight of his career, so to speak. I mean, he was just a huge 6'9", former professional football player, but he'd had so many knee surgeries. It was really hard for him to get around.
Yeah.
And being big as he was and having bad knees. I mean, when he was in his youth, he could leapfrog and drop kick and do all of it. But by the time he got to me, which was about 1984, 84,
Around the end of it, yeah.
84, 85, he was on the tail. He was pretty much on the end of his run. So he could still talk great. Ernie Ladd was one of the best talkers ever.
Yeah.
And so he could still get it done on the bike and get the heat with the fan. But as far as what he was able to do in his physical performance, he was very limited. So you had to kind of cater to that and work to that and keep his pace, do things he was capable of doing.
Wow. But did you enjoy working for Mid-South?
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Bill Watts was like a teacher, a mentor. He ran a very professional business. He treated his wrestlers like professional football players. He treated the whole business very with a lot of respect. He wanted the guys to have respect for themselves and for the business. We always protected the business big time. And he'd come from he was taught by Eddie Graham, and Eddie Graham was old school. Bill Watts carried that lineage on with him, and everybody that worked for him. I think everybody that worked for him at the time really benefited from what he was able to teach us about being professional wrestlers, being professional athletes, and ultimately what it took to draw money.
Yeah, he had a lot of big names back then too, didn't he?
So when I was there, yeah, he did. It was, Junkyard Dog, Butch Reed was there, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Jim Neinhardt, Steve Dr. Death Williams, Ted DiBiase, Kamala, the Missing Link. Let's see, Nikolai Volkov. I mean, the Rock and Roll Express, the Midnight Express, Mr. Wrestling 2, Ray Hercules Hernandez. I mean, the place was loaded.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. I didn't know so many people came from there. It's just like how I just learned how many people came from the Heart Dungeon as well. And it's just amazing to listen to the history of you guys and where you guys started. And like Portland, Oregon seems to be one of the most popular places as well.
Well, you think about Roddy Piper.
Yeah.
Obviously one of the biggest stars ever out of there. Billy Jack Haynes, and of course Matt Bourne. Went on to do great things in the industry, and Princess Victoria up there in that realm. So Playboy Buddy Rose out of there was part of that. I got to wrestle Gene Kaninsky. After I'd only been in the business about a month.
Really?
I'm in there with Big Gene Kaninsky, former World's Heavyweight Champion, and great guy, super guy. Love being able to share some time with him in the ring. Some legendary guys came through there.
Yeah, my grandfather knew Gene Kaninsky. He was worked for the same union as him out in Vancouver here, so he got to meet him and Jack Bentz as well. I don't know if you know Jack Bentz.
I know the name. I
Yeah.
don't remember spending time with him. And Jay Youngblood, again, he was there when I was there. But Hacksaw Buzz Sawyer was there. Gosh, who else? Rip Oliver. Um, it's just, I don't know. I was there for about 6 months, so it was like
Yeah.
kind of a whirlwind.
Probably went too fast too with all the matches and everything.
Yeah,
7 days a
absolutely.
week. Not much sleep then. If you guys got to train and do. Back then, you didn't have the social media, so I guess it was a little different. You didn't have to go.
Just a little different. Yeah, I mean, you're on the road usually an average of 3 hours to somewhere, 3 hours back. You're at the arena for, like from 6 o'clock until the matches are over with, anywhere from 10 to 11 o'clock, and then back home, and then getting up, trying to train and get ready to go do it all again. Is just like a continual cycle that never stops. And back then we were all driving everywhere we went pretty much. So you were pretty much putting 100,000 miles a year on a vehicle.
Wow.
So you're wearing out yourself, you're wearing out machinery and everything, chasing the dream.
You guys aren't making that much money either back then, wrestling from town to town.
No, working full time, I've looked back on it, and I had a better story than most. I mean, I hear about these guys that couldn't even afford to buy food. And I was making, back in the 80s, I was making 18, 19, $20,000 a year. But that's working 7 days a week. I mean, I wasn't really making anything, but I was making enough money to eat and take care of myself. You hear about these guys who go to and from a town for $30 and couldn't hardly afford a bologna sandwich. I didn't have it that bad, but I was fortunate enough that I got booked every day. And, no matter what, I always, was making at least 400 to $500 a week, throughout my entire, learning stage of the business.
Yeah. You got to pay for your own travel fees and everything on top of that too, right?
Oh yeah, your own insurance, your own, everything everything comes out of your pocket. You're independent contractor, so it was a very tough nut to crack, and not that many guys were fortunate enough to make it to the top. Back then, if you broke in the business and you got a break after you'd been in the business 5-6 years, that was considered phenomenal. I mean, guys worked on the bottom to the middle of the card sometimes for 10 years, didn't get a break, So, yeah, I was one of the fortunate ones.
Yeah, I've noticed that. I've seen people who should have been great or who actually are great, but they don't care to show how great they are. They work 20 years and they don't have as great of a career as you did. Like, you've had all these titles, you've had all these feuds. With the best feud again is Nikita Koloff. Gotta love the feud with Tully Blanchard. Like, that one's got to be one of the top ones too. I was working with the Horsemen.
They were all great. I mean, when I was with them, it was the original. So it was Ole and Arn and Tully and Rick. They were the original four, of course, with JJ. And I mean, that was just a great combination, great chemistry. It was so because the guys worked so hard. Had a lot of tag team matches with Dusty against them, and 6-man and 8-man matches with like the Road Warriors or the Rock and Roll Express, tag teaming up with them, and having all of us in the ring, and it was crazy. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, Ric Flair was just actually starting to get up at that time too, wasn't he? Like, he was around the time he was starting to.
He won the title. I think he won the title originally back in 80 or 81, maybe. Okay. But things started like really building for him when Jimmy Crockett got us on Turner Broadcasting on TBS on the 605 TBS show. That's when it took off for everybody, because before then Rick had to travel all over the world to defend the belt, and make, try to make good money and all those kind of things. And now all of a sudden, the Crockett's are booking the entire world, and they're booking from coast to coast. So now he's getting to ride around on private planes and really truly living the life of a world champion, where before he had to do a lot of things that were probably not quite as glamorous.
Yeah.
Going to Kansas City, or going to places that weren't maybe maxed out as big as what it grew to be in the mid 80s, and wrestled a lot of hour time limit matches, because when he came to a territory, he would wrestle whoever the champion was, and they would never want their champion to look bad when the world champion left, because they're there still making a living and drawing money for them. So Ric Flair would do hour Broadways, hour draw matches with people all over the world.
Wow.
And that's a whole lot of work.
Yeah, it goes to show you what a lot of hard work can do for you.
Yes.
So you were also around. Were you around to see Hogan come out as Terry Boulder?
So I met Terry when I was wrestling in Florida, championship wrestling in '82ish, right when the Rocky movie came out, and he got the break there, and it was right before he came into the WWE, as Hulkamania. So I saw all that happen, and I remember I was standing in a bar with a bunch of our guys watching the first WrestleMania on a TV screen. They're going, this is pretty cool. Watching this whole deal unfold. So I was watching that, and then the NWA, we were competing like head to head with the WWE. So like, we'd go to Philly, we'd go to Baltimore, we'd go to Pittsburgh, this book same night, same everything as them. They'd be in one arena sold out, we'd be up the road in another arena, and both buildings sold out.
Wow.
And Hogan is going in there and having his kind of match, which involved a whole lot of walking and talking and playing to the crowd, and maybe a 10-minute match. And we're in NWA having 30-minute, 45-minute, hour-long matches, a real grueling physical competition compared to what this was for a cartoonish kind of sometimes compared to what we do. And that was the things I remember most about the 80s, when I was, at my, climbing my peak of what I was doing, when, the feuds with Tully and Rick and I wrestled, 19-hour Broadways in 1 month, going around the loop. And, Dusty always had this thing that he referred to about pride in your product. And he always tried to instill in us that we wanted to have the best wrestling product humanly possible, so that our product would outshine, everybody else's. And we had a great group of guys, and really and truly, we did a heck of a job accomplishing that for a long time.
What were your thoughts on it when Vince McMahon bought out all the territories? And were you upset, or I guess you were almost done, right?
It was like a natural kind of evolution thing, because it wasn't just Vince McMahon. Jimmy Crockett did the same thing. So it wasn't so much just buying them out. We were putting them out of business, because we had, between the two companies, we had all the talent. We had all the big stars. They're on USA Network. We're on TBS Network. We're both seen worldwide. And if you weren't on those two programs, you weren't anybody. I mean, that was the way it was. So that just put the AWA and the championship wrestling from Texas, and the Florida championship wrestling, and Tennessee, and it put all those small groups where they couldn't compete. They couldn't entice people to want to come there, because they couldn't pay them enough money. And don't have big stars, you're not going to draw. So it just when the progress, it's just like the internet. If we didn't have the internet in the 80s like we have today, we couldn't have told the story like we were able to do in all the towns and going different places and doing things, because everybody was talking about it instantly all over the place. So you wouldn't be able to like Tully and I, we worked that program 8 months before the blow-off match, the I Quit match.
Wow.
And there's no way in the world you could work an 8-month program with one person a day all over the country and do sell out business everywhere you went, because everybody would already be talking about the results or posting it on YouTube or whatever, and they would have already seen it. They had to pay and come out to an arena and pay their money and sit down in a seat to see what we did. They couldn't see it for free on TV, and they couldn't. And there was no internet, so it was a different world.
Yeah. Wow. I actually liked it better without the internet, because the kayfabe, a lot of the things that go on behind the curtain, there's none of our business. Like, I'm not going to I don't mean to mention this, but what Terry Bollea said, I'm not going to say what Hulk Hogan said, because Hulk Hogan is just a character to me. I'm a fan of Hulk Hogan. I don't know Terry Bollea. So whatever he does outside the ring, outside the Hulk Hogan name, none of my business.
Right.
Right. So I think personally the internet's just ruined it for some.
It did, and it's a shame, because people go to the movies and they know the movies aren't real, right?
Yeah.
But they still get drawn into the story, and they get on the edge of their seats, if it's really captivating. And the way we were able to tell the story, because we couldn't see behind the scenes, it drew everybody every week to want to see how that story progressed.
Yeah.
To see the next piece of it. It was like watching the old Batman shows back in the 60s. And they say, see you next week, same bat time, same bat station. Well, we always left the wrestling show with a hook. You had to watch the next week to see what happened on the hook.
Yeah.
And we never gave it all to you on TV. You had to come out to the arena to truly see the confrontations take place. Because you might see us arguing with each other. We might get into a fight on TV, but you never saw the result, the conclusion that you ultimately want to see as a fan, without coming to the arena and seeing the content.
Yeah.
And that's what made it special. That's what made the whole thing exciting.
Yeah.
And it did. It took something away from it, and it kind of diminished what the art form really is all about, because part of the art form is making this thing look like such a serious contest that you might watch 10 matches and 2 of them be so intense that you might say, hey, I think those guys were kind of messing around in some of those things they did. But if 1 or 2 of them were so good that you walked out there scratching your head, talking about it, saying they really lost their temper, or those guys were really mad at each other, that was enough to keep it going.
Yeah.
And that's what Tully and I and several other guys, that was our goal. We wanted to be the people walked out the building talking about what they saw.
Well, it's like the time that Dusty Rhodes saved you from Tully Blanchard and J.J. Dillon after you retired, when you came for your interview. Tully Blanchard, I also noticed, though, which was really awesome, J.J. Dillon, when you went down, he slowly helped you down because of your accident, which was really, they still gave it to you. You still got it head from Tully, and Dusty made it look believable with that baseball bat.
He did. And those are the things that are like, that make memories that people talk about for 30 years. That's why, here I am, 62 years old, still talking to people about the I Quit match and the best of 7 and the feud with wrestling, when guys are still, they captured people's imagination, and they can watch it back on YouTube or the WWE Network or Peacock or whatever the heck it is now. There's ways for young kids to watch what was done 30 years ago, and it still holds up, and
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I just showed my wife that actually, and because she was never a fan of wrestling before she met me, and I always talked about you, Nikita Koloff's Best of Seven. So she always asked. So I always, almost every day, I turn on a video of you guys, and she just loves it. Like, she loves your mustache, the Tom Selleck mustache. Where did you come up with that idea?
So I always had the mustache. That was something I just had from the time I was old enough to grow one. But the idea was Andre the Giants. Andre and I traveled together, and we'd gotten to be friends in Portland the first time I met him.
Really?
And then I saw him again. That was 1980, probably like February, March, something like that of 1980 when I met him. And then in 82, he and I ran into each other again. And I'm pretty seasoned, got to learn the ropes a little bit. And he told me, he said, we were having breakfast, and he said, all you need is a catchy name. You need a handle, he called it, like a CD handle,
Yeah.
And I said, well, he said, you kind of look like that Magnum PI guy. You should be Magnum PA. And he came up with a name, and I didn't know what that meant, but it was a catchy name. And and his plan was to go back to Vince Sr., who was still living, and talk to him about me and bring me to New York, the WWF. That was his plan. But before that could all take place, Paul Orndorff, who was working for Bill Watts, left them kind of unceremoniously and went to work for Vince. And opened the door for me in Mid-South, and they called me and gave me an opportunity to come there and work on the top. And that's where I took the name Magnum TA and started using it before I ever got a chance to go to New York.
Well, yeah.
So it could have all been different. And Andre's plan worked out. I may have never been doing any of that with those guys in the NWA.
Yeah. Wow. That's pretty cool. I guess he was a pretty cool guy to hang out with too, right, Andre?
Oh yeah. Oh, he was the best. He was the best. He was a gentleman. He was funny. He was intelligent. He was just one of the nicest guys you'd ever want to meet.
Wow. What was going from Mid-South into Jim Crockett promotions? What was the difference? Was it a big difference? I guess going from territory into something that became big.
It was like playing for a minor league professional team at Mid-South by comparison, and then going into getting pulled up from the bullpen and getting pulled up into the major leagues, because we drove everywhere in Mid-South. It was tough. Every day we drove crazy distances. And when I came to work for the Crockett's, and we took on this worldwide presence, now we're flying on, first we were flying commercial planes, but then we went from commercial planes to buying our own jets and whatnot.
Wow.
and flying around. And we went, and so it was like going from a very successful promotion that was as big as it could be, covering Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, part of Texas, and Oklahoma, which was still a huge area.
Yeah.
Now we're covering all 50 states. We're covering the world, and we're jet setting and gone from being able to make $2,000 in a week to $10,000 in a week. I mean, it was that's the kind of difference it was.
Wow. And they welcome you with open arms, or they look at you differently?
Yeah, no, it was Dusty had come from Florida to work for the Crockett as the booker, and he had plans of building everything. Barry Windham had come with him from Florida, but the territory was on his rear end. It was They weren't drawing any money. I mean, Flair was there, Wahoo was there, Steamboat was there, Don Canoodle. I can't think of all the different names of guys that were there, but anyway, territory was just flat. So Barry wasn't making any money. He could. I mean, he was there for a couple of months and just couldn't take it. He took off and went to New York. Again, another one off to New York. So Barry gone. Dusty calls me, and we're selling out every night where I'm at in Mid-South. We're doing capacity business everywhere we go, and I'm making more money than I've ever made in my life. And Jimmy Crockett gets on the phone with me. Dusty calls me in the middle of the night and tells me, you know, what's going on, what he wants to do, introduces me to Jimmy. And they basically told me that they would give me the biggest opportunity anybody could ever have in this industry. And they did. They gave me the biggest push that you could possibly get. And they treated me like $1 million. And, you know, we went out and made history. Did things that never been.
Well, you wrestled people like Lex Luger and all that back in those days, right? Or did you?
Lex was actually just getting started.
Really?
Lex and I were together at a Comic-Con in Fayetteville, North Carolina, weekend before last. We were talking about it. And when I was still wrestling, I met Lex, and Lex had only been in the business like 6 months. And he was like an underneath guy, you know, trying to work his way up the ladder. So I never got to wrestle Lex, but I, you know, certainly watched Lex a lot, watched his career and what he went on to do. But that was Lex, Sting, all those guys came along after I had that accident in 1986.
Yeah, that was horrible. I heard about that. What was it like to have the first feud? Because you got into Crockett around the end of '84, right? And
it was actually, it was December of '84 when I came in, and my first feud there was with Wahoo McDaniels.
Right, you won the title or something, the U.S. title in March of that year. What was that was fast going into. I guess they were really giving you that big push, huh?
Well, it was, but you know, I was a proven product because I'd been the North American heavyweight champion for a long time for Bill. And
5 months.
You know, so that was my first major, you know, achievement, singles achievement was with Bill. So when I came over there, you know, the U.S. heavyweight title for the Crockett's was like the stepping stone to the world title. If you were the U.S. heavyweight champion, you were automatically the #1 contender for the world title. So that was a big milestone for me. And Wahoo was legendary. I mean, he'd been around Carolinas a long time, Mid-Atlantic, and of course he's legendary in football and college athletics. So for him to pass the torch to me and put me over for the U.S. title the way he did, it was, I mean, sold out. Charlotte, North Carolina, his hometown, where he'd been for years, 11,000 people inside of a steel cage, and he does the favor right in the middle, 1, 2, 3. I mean, you don't get any better than that, you know, a handoff.
Wow, that's true respect right there. That's so we mentioned a little bit of the Tully Blanchard thing. You mentioned the I Quit match. Can you tell the people who haven't seen it a little bit about it, your opinion on how it went?
Well, you know, it's so funny because he and I had worked, I don't even know how many times over 8 months, because we're going 7 days a week and twice on Saturdays, twice on Sundays. So, I mean, a lot of times I wrestle 11 and 12 times a week.
Yeah.
You know, but anyway, he and I had gone just all around the whole United States feuding and fighting. And the I Quit match was going to be the blow off match, because when I'd won the title from Wahoo, and then in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I'd won it, Baby Doll comes down dressed up as a police officer slips him a roll of quarters, and he knocks me out with a roll of quarters. Quarters go everywhere.
Yeah.
And the heat in that building was insane. Like I'd never seen anything like it. And so we started the feud, and I'm chasing him for that title. And they came up with the idea of having this I Quit match. And there'd been some really tough matches in the past, like the dog collar match that Roddy Piper had with Greg Valentine, which was a really brutal match. But we were looking to have that kind of intensity in the cage, and then have the blow off with the match. And we had no idea at the time that we were going to come up with this ghastly looking gimmick with that chair that looked like something out of a monster movie, because that wasn't even planned.
Really?
I was just supposed to find something and throw it in the ring. We didn't go plant a chair in the ring. We reached around the ring and found an old, heavy, folding wooden chair like they used to set up back in the day around the ring.
Yeah.
And hurled that thing from the floor over top of that cage. That chair probably weighed a good 15 pounds or so, and
wow.
She wings it over the top.
15 feet, right?
Yeah. Not anybody can do that, but she did.
Yeah.
And then when it breaks, it comes off that big, jagged, nasty looking spike. And obviously we knew what we were going to do with the finish, but we didn't know it was going to be so visual that it looked like, oh my God, that one of them is going to plunge that thing through the other one's skull, and it's all going to be over. And so it was pretty, it was very intense. I had no idea when we did it that it was going to leave the, decades back that it had, and the people were going to be comparing other matches to that for, all these years. But he was, my intensity as a baby face, he was the equal of as a heel. And we just worked incredible together. We didn't have to talk. We knew each other's every move. If he rushed me, I knew we could do X, Y, Z, and he could react to whatever I did, and vice versa. He knew the same thing. And so, we didn't have to talk about it. We could just do it. And the intensity was just magic.
Yeah, I can see with him, with everybody else, that guy doesn't work magic no matter what he does. Even on right now in AEW, I don't know if you watch the newer stuff, but he's really good on the mic still. Like, it's as if watching him back in those days talking, and it's amazing. You guys share the same thing. Your stepdaughter, Tessa Blanchard. What was it like to watch her win, the first woman ever to win the heavyweight title?
It was cool. It was a cool moment, but for me, I knew instantly that they had painted themselves in a corner.
Yeah.
And here they made this, painted this story of this, little 135-pound mini mite, beating these monsters, and with Sammy Callahan, he is one of the modern day heels in the industry right now.
Yeah, he's good.
If for nothing else, me getting to see him work, I'll appreciate that experience, because hands down, he's just an amazing talent.
Yeah.
And he's not so big that he couldn't make it believable with her, even though the difference in their size could make it believable. I didn't care as much for her, working with a great big guy. What's the big muscle guy's name?
Oh yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Oh my goodness, my brain just locked up. But she is. If some of it can look so, like choreographed, that it just, you couldn't get the end of the deal in your head, how it could be real, like a superhero. But with Sammy, you could. So two great things happened in Impact. One, she had that match with Gail Kim, And the match with Gail Kim was 5-star. That was the best match I've ever seen Tessa have with a female competitor ever. And I'm glad she was able to have that and have that with Gail, because I think Gail is, in my opinion, one of the best women that's ever put on a pair of boots.
Yeah.
As far as her work, because I like that style of work. She was ahead of her time. I mean, Charlotte Flair can work like that. There's girls that can work like that now, but during the 80s and 90s, there wasn't anybody doing that before Gail Kim. So for Tessa to have that was amazing. But like I said, going back to her winning the title, I thought it was crazy. I thought it was cool, but I wanted myself, now what do you do? Now you've got the whole locker room that chases the world title, and you have put it on this, little miniature pit bull. And what do you do? And then COVID comes along and changed everything. So it was great. It'll, cement her a foot place in history as being the first woman to ever win a title of that magnitude. Of course, China had been the Intercontinental Champion.
Yeah, I think she was also hardcore. I can't remember, but she was the Intercontinental.
Yeah, and so China was, a trend, had done a trend-setting thing, but Tessa then got to one up it with their their world championship, and I'm happy for her to been able to have that experience, and and the people from Impact came out here to our home, as a matter of fact, and Tate did some video stuff of it, with the family talking about it, whatnot. And it was nice, and it was a great experience for her. But I knew it wasn't the end game. I knew it was another step, kind of in the equation of what's next.
Oh, she's amazing. She's very amazing talent, and I know she's going to go far once all this COVID stuff goes and she can come back out from Mexico. I'm sure she's going to go somewhere. People are going to be bugging for her, and she's got the talent. Okay, what about the Nikita Koloff, the best of 7, the greatest best of 7 that I've ever seen, the greatest comeback. So he had you 3-0. Was it?
He hit me down 3-0. Yeah.
Yeah. What was it like to do that? I know you've had matches all the time with these people, but to go for a best of 7 to compete for, how was it?
It was great, because the whole angle and the way we went into it, and he had the magnificent Ivan Koloff, brilliant guy, in his corner and mentoring him, and then we made him into Nikita into this monster, and painted this picture of the U.S. versus Russia, and my thing was always being somebody that can fight from the bottom up, because people want to come cheer to see somebody make that comeback, right? And I mean, if you've made it to the top of the hill, you're not going to get as many people come. People don't want to see you lose it once you got to the top of the hill. They want to see you climb the hill and get it. So having Bob Geigel, strip me of the title like they did, and then put the title up as the prize in the best of 7 series was genius on Dustin's part. Big basketball. So that's where he came up with the best of 7 thing. But we knew all along it would be a fight from the bottom up kind of thing. So that's why, being 1 down, 2 down, 3 down, and then, starting to fight my way back up against all odds was, the ultimate thing. And again, it all came down to game 7, and they had Ivan and Crusher all involved in the finish. I mean, I got beat by 3 people, but it was all said and done and over with. Again, in Charlotte, in the Coliseum, sold out, that same building where all this magic stuff always happened, and it was incredible.
Yeah. Incredible. I think that was the best the world best of seven matches. Benoit and Booker T put on a really good set, but again, nothing to beat that one. Um, I don't really want to get into too much of it because I don't know what your mental health is about it. The accident. What has that left you with after so many years now? Like, what are you suffering with it right now?
Well, I'm not sure, I'm sure you've researched. Initially, I was paralyzed from my neck down.
Yeah,
I was a complete quadriplegic. So being able to make any kind of comeback where I was being able to be independent again and be able to walk around and do anything on my own was something, they never thought would happen.
yeah,
So obviously, it was a miracle that I was able to get back ambulatory, nowhere near making a full comeback, but I still have basically the same level of ability that I have today, 33 years later, than I did after the first year. So I regained uh, more strength on one side of my body than my right, but regained enough strength that I was able to walk, and I can still work around it, and I still work full time. And I've worked, every day for the 20 some years, 25 years, taking care of my family. And I've got a big family. I've got an extended family. I've got uh, three children that I fathered, and then four children of Tully's. I married Tully's ex-wife, and helped raise three. Then, well, actually, it was three, 1, 3, 5, and 7 year old. That's how they were when Courtney and I got married. So we've got this big old crazy extended family, and it's all been a blessing. Obviously, I wish my career had gone longer. I was only 27 years old when I had that automobile wreck. Um, but by comparison, when I look at my peers, how many of them are gone? How many of
yeah,
them died in their 40s or before 40? Um, the things that went on in the industry after I was out, a mixture of performance enhancing drugs and alcohol and pain pills and all those things ended up just being so toxic that
yeah.
I literally lost almost 50% of my friends
Really,
and people I work with. So I wish things had been different, as far as in my head, but in my heart, when I think about the family that I've got, the kids I've got, the experiences I've been able to have, the interaction I have with fans even today, I'm glad to still be here at 52 years old. And maybe I would have been 10 times world champion, but maybe I would have been before I was 40, like so many of my friends.
yeah,
You
yeah,
don't know.
yeah. Well, I'm glad you're still around. I'm glad you're working, and I'm glad I'm like I said in the beginning. This is the biggest honor to be able to sit in front of you. I wish I was there to shake your hand and all that and say thank you for all your entertainment. Um, while back, WWE, you got to stand up and being named as one of the former U.S. title champions. How was that experience after so many
It,
years?
it was cool. It was great to be back. I can't tell you what it's like to be out of the business, and then when you get to go back in the limelight to that degree, it's like
Yeah,
going back home. Because of all the things I've done my entire life, obviously as a business person, performer, you can't compare any of them to being in the center stage of all those people's attention and being able
yeah,
to perform. So I still love the industry. Uh, I haven't got to be a part of it the way, in some ways like I might want it to be, after the fact. But the WWE has been very good to me. and always treated me with a great deal of respect. Vince has been super every time I've crossed paths and talked, and he's made me feel really good about what I was able to accomplish and what he and I could have done together. We had the
Yeah.
opportunity. Uh, and Stephanie is she's just a sweetheart. So they're like, I feel like a big extended family because we all go so far back together, and I really appreciate it.
Wow, that's so amazing. You had such an amazing career. Yeah, you had a short career, but like we said before, these people that you've mentioned that passed away, you've had a better career than some of these that wrestled until they passed away or whatever.
Well, it's funny. I listened to Mick Foley on an interview the other day, and he said almost that same thing. He said for years it bothered him when anybody talked to him, all they wanted to talk about was him jumping off the top of the cage,
Yeah.
and going through that table and blah 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 blah. But he said that exact same thing. He said the light bulb finally went off, and he realized, so many great performers out there that were truly craftsmen at what they do, and entertainers and artists never have a moment that fans, beyond just the wrestling in the ring. And he had that, amazing. And with the I Quit match with Tully, best of seven series with Nikita, I was able to make a match like that too in a really short period of time. That was only in the ring a little less than 7 years. From start to finish. I was telling a guy the other day, I said, who'd have thought I graduated high school in 1977, wrestled 167 pounds, state champion in 77. And in 1985, I'm wrestling Ric Flair for the World's Heavyweight Championship in Norfolk Scope, my old hometown, sold out. 2 sets of granddaddies in the stand, my mom and dad, all my friends. Who gets to do that?
Yeah. It's a dream that a lot of people wish they can live. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Before we cut this off, is there anything that you would like to say out there to your fans? Any advice or anything that are watching, or anybody that's missed seeing you on TV?
Well, just the fact that persevering and hard work is still the equation for success, no matter what it is you do. You have to have a certain amount of luck. You have to have a certain amount of being in the right place at the right time for the magic to sprinkle on that hard work. But there is still no substitute for having a great work ethic, whether you're a plumber or you're a contractor or you work at the grocery store or you're a doctor. It doesn't matter what it is. That work ethic is still the formula for success. And everybody, if they want to, can choose to make excuses about the woulda, shoulda, coulda, or you can take every day as an opportunity and give it your best, and not look back on the past and say, oh, this is what life could have been, because we only have today. Nobody's promised tomorrow, and if you don't give it all you got, you're going to be leaving it on the table.
Well, thank you so much. That's very cool. Thank you again so much, Magnum TA, Mr. Terry Allen. Again, this is the biggest honor. I wish I could meet you in person one day after all this pandemic is over, so I could shake your hand and thank you in person for the entertainment that you have done. Not only that, for being the amazing person you are today, to sit here and talk to me. It's a very big honor to get to know Terry Allen compared to seeing the character Magnum TA. Thank you so much again.
It's absolutely my pleasure. And thank you for what you do, bringing me in and letting the fans have this opportunity. I appreciate it.
Well, I believe the fans should know about the history, who paved the road for who they watch today. So with that, I'd like to thank everybody for watching. This is Wildeye, and again, thank you to my guest. And until next time, I got you in the sight. on my Wildeye.